It doesn't matter the skill you bring. What matters is, can you get things done or not? You got to have the owner's mindset. If you were the owner of the company and you had an employee like you doing this role, would you be happy with what you're getting? Close to about 40% CEOs and seem to say their business models will not survive for more than a 10-year period. Pick up Satya Nadella. When he became the CEO of Microsoft, he came back and said mobile first, cloud first. Very bold decision. You will fail, but with every failure, you have to have the muscle to be able to think about the next dream. I think I was deeply curious, very hungry to learn, to prove, to make a point. Each time I'd go and meet a client, I'd love to learn about saying, आपके 20 साल में आपने क्या किया? आपकी कंपनी कैसे चलती है? आपका competition कैसा चलता है? Some of the best technologists don't seem to understand humans and customers and employees, and some of the best HR folks don't seem to understand technology. They're so engrossed in that topic. But to run a successful business, you have to be a humanist who's great at technology. I will do everything possible to make this guy succeed.
Not only the network you're building upwards, it also matters a lot on how people you work with think about you.
The biggest media companies in the country today have 50 million paid subscribers in a country of 1.6 billion people. You think we can't disrupt that? Tesla today sells a car directly. And that's where every company wants to get to, saying, how can I own the customer? Today, if as a leader, you can go hire people who are smarter than you, who've had the courage to fail, who don't think twice before saying, boss, you were wrong. I mean, it's like that Steve Jobs statement that says, if there was no next day tomorrow, would I do what I'm doing? Slightly controversial.
So how are you feeling today?
I'm doing absolutely good.
Wonderful to know that. Hi people, welcome to yet another conversation at Discover with Singh. I feel that you would already know who Mr. Manpreet Singh Ahuja is, but just to give a brief introduction about him, he's the Chief Digital Officer and also leads the TMT sector for PwC. Right, sir?
Absolutely. And this dinosaur who's been working for 23 years loves to be with younger people, and that's what he's doing right now and feeling more energized.
Oh, I'm glad. You've been working for 23 years. I am 23 today. Wow.
Oh, happy birthday. Lovely.
So yes, but that's when I say that you're this Chief Digital Officer and you're leading TMT, right? That's the introduction that people know of you. That's how they look at you. But how do you define Manpreet, or who Manpreet is, apart from the leader that Manpreet is?
So you're getting me into a little bit of a philosophy, but I think over these 20 years, I think one thing that stayed with me is to dream. I truly call myself a dreamer, and trust me, when you start your career, people laugh at you, joke at you when you're a dreamer, because they say Mungeri Lal ke haseen sapne, and when you become successful, people say, oh my God, the guy is a dreamer. So I think I get inspired by startups and the stories of startups where they are able to think much beyond the resources they have in hand, and that's who I am. And I'm privileged that sitting in a place like where we are sitting in the corporate environment, where the companies have resources, you're able to fuel those dreams much faster. But even if all of that was not there, I would still dream bigger than what I have, and it's okay to fail. That's the biggest thing that you got to learn when you are in the business of dreaming. It's okay to fail. Not every dream will get fulfilled.
But when we look at this society, we don't really glorify failures. Why do you think that's that?
Everybody likes to keep it clean. I mean, look at our families. I mean, you don't go back and tell your son saying, hey, tomorrow's your exam, don't worry, you should fail. I mean, generally the whole society is moving towards wanting to be successful. Corporates want to be successful. NGOs want to be successful. People want to be successful. So somewhere success has been overrated and has been boxed down to a very, limited definition. And I think until the startup ecosystem became significant, the concept of failure was just not even made visible. The stories never even came into the forefront. So it's a problem. It's a cultural problem, and we'll have to solve it if as a society we need to grow and do better. And I'm not saying it's just unique to India. It's a problem all over, but it definitely was more intense in India in the years when we were growing up. So at least I was growing up, sorry.
No, I will also not differ a lot from you on that. But how do you think we can change that as individuals who are looking at this, or as within their environments, how do you think
So like
changed?
I'll give you a non-corporatish example. So
Sure.
between me and my son, my son's about 14, my girl's 9. But at least with my son, my conversation is, let's make sure that we have a great process and not worry about the outcome. Let's celebrate that we followed the full process, not necessarily the outcome. So our party in exams is not when the results come out. The party in the exams is when the exams are, when you finish your exams, because it really doesn't matter. You enjoyed the process, you did your hard work, you had a great plot, and you followed the plot to the T to your satisfaction. Uske baad outcome मायने नहीं रखता. If you do happen to succeed, nothing like it. If you didn't happen to succeed, you know the process is going to give you resilience enough to get back again. So we've got to do our small bits to be able to do that. Second small corporate-ish example, I'll tell you, when I'm interviewing people at work, there are, and courtesy the startup ecosystem, there are a lot of people who worked in startups, and there are a lot of people who then got a rub off and did their own startup and failed early in life. My respect for people who've attempted doing a startup and failed is massive, and they'll end up being phenomenal people at work. They've learned so much at the age of 25, 28, 29. It's not funny. Like I usually go back and say, you must, if you can manage, fail a startup by the time you're about 14 or 15. It just teaches you so much.
Yeah, I'll be with you on that. And as you talk about the process, right? My elder brother once told me that we're ideating on a startup, right? And so we thought that, when we started or just ideating about it, what we'll do is, for an initial few months or initial time, just focus on our input matrix, which is the processes, and not on the outcome, or say the revenues we are generating, or say the number of clients we've onboarded. Let's focus more on the number of client meetings we've done. Let's focus more on the research that we put in, or the hard work that we've been putting in on our end. So I hope this translates afar, that people, and say when people are recruiting, especially looking at your lives as careers, right? Failures like these are looked up as the way you're looking them, that this person has had the courage to fail, right?
Oh yeah,
Been there.
I mean, I just think, now of course you don't aspire to only fail through the career,
right?
But you should have tried enough things, you should have taken enough risks to, and in the process if you end up failing, that's absolutely fine. Your CV will show that you tried 5 things. But if you're like, you struggle to even try things because you don't want to experiment, because you have the risk of failing, sorry, you won't be successful. In fact, actually, slightly controversial, some of the kids who are like the top scorers in schools don't necessarily do well in corporates, don't necessarily get to be the CEOs, because their ability to take risks could be very, very low. Now, I'm not linking it back saying if you're a topper at school, you'll not be successful. Right. But if you are that mindset who cannot take the risk because you need to be 200% prepared for everything, it's not going to work in corporate, because life is very, very foggy. You can't today predict what the future in the 10 year ahead is going to be.
Right.
So you got to thrive into that, that chaos. Can't be prepared for it.
My intuition tells me you've read the book Who Moved My Cheese.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You wanted to say a few words about that book? Or
no, I mean not about the book, but that just comes back. I mean, I'm not. You're taking the conversation back to my day job. I mean, PwC went out in its CEO survey that close to about 40% CEOs, in my sector about 50% CEOs seem to say their business models will not survive for more than a 10-year period. Now, you see large companies, TMT companies do fairly well. Yeah. Each one of those CEOs should be proud of what they've achieved. Right. But somewhere back of their mind, they've got this fogginess of saying, I may be doing well, I may be in the middle of a zillion transformations now, but I don't know what business is going to look like 10 years from now. And I don't think this model is going to survive or succeed. That's a very difficult feeling to be in. So, and as they're thinking, the cheese is moving. Yeah. And if you go back and say, I mean, pick up Satya Nadella. When he became the CEO of Microsoft, he came back and, we used to consult and work with the company. Came back and said mobile first, cloud first. Today everybody says, wow, fantastic strategy. Just imagine being in a business where your largest pot of dollars were enterprise dollars, which were long-term contracts that you would sign, a 3-year $1 billion enterprise deal. And now you say, oh, you don't, by the way, need to pay me $1 billion, pay per use. Are you killing me? Are you telling me I shouldn't go and renew that contract with the customer? Very bold decision. But he moved he led the movement of cheese. Yeah. And just today, everybody's kind of talking about cloud and paper service and pay-per-use and subscription. Yeah. That wasn't the model then.
So he had the courage to first adapt and then.
And if you look around, you know, a lot of, when I talk to a lot of young people, they say, oh shit, I wish I was born 10 years back. Because in the years when you were growing up, there were so many opportunities of things to be disrupted. There was no Amazon, there was no Flipkart. You know, I wish I had the opportunity of being able to build that. There was no Spotify. You know, all of this has been built in the last 10, 15 years when you were busy doing your jobs. I wish you had the courage to build your own startups. And abhi to, it's such a crowded market. I mean, are there even ideas left for somebody to innovate? No, I'm going back and, you know, I go back and say, when you look at any business and go deep into saying what's next, what could be the possibility, understand what the customer wants, understand what your solution is, you'll realize there's going to be a zillion more opportunities that are going to come through to disrupt every single business that we do.
Sure.
And that's really the opportunities. Even in my times, I'd go back and say, oh my God, there are so many big companies around us. I mean, what can a startup do? It's not easy. So, I mean, it's just the aptitude and the mindset.
Got it. As much as I take away from the mindset, and yes, this is a good point to say that, you know, be mindful of course, there are always opportunities rather than thinking of what could have been the case. The cheese has moved and let's adapt accordingly. But okay, let's take it back to you navigating the fog in your career, right? As a lot of people who watching us might be, you know, young people aspiring to be Manpreet Singh Ahuja in say 20-25 years from now. Let's get them to the story of how you navigated the fog when you were, say, 18 or 16, when being in a family of engineers, you took the decision to pursue a CA.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, I was in a corporate AI event the other day with a large bank. And the first question was, so where did you do your computer engineering from? Like, yeah, wow.
For real?
Yeah. It was actually very interesting. The moderator was kind of doing it. And the guy on the other side was the technologist for the world of finance. Yeah. And he had the similar question to him saying, where did you get your world of finance from? He was a computer engineer. No, so like I said, you know, as an inherent dreamer and an inherent optimist, it was so, you know, I was born and brought up in Delhi, stayed in Delhi till about my grade 10th, moved to Shimla in 11th and 12th, and my dad was getting transferred. So when I moved to a smaller city, I was very, very clear that, you know, you'll hopefully top the city and you'll hopefully get back to Delhi or Bombay or a big place, get to a great college and make a great career ahead. And when I made a choice of becoming a chartered accountant, I was fairly confident with that choice because I thought the world of commerce, the world of business is what excites me and that's where I can create opportunities. And there were people around me who went back and said, are you sure about it? I mean, trust me, in the years when I was growing up, it was more fashionable to be a science student. It was more, you know, not fashionable is the wrong word. Actually, it was, if you were the A category, you would actually take sciences. If you weren't the A category, you'd possibly get to commerce. And I thought I was A category and I made a choice to get to commerce very confidently. So it was very, very simple. And the guy who had inspired me to get to commerce was somebody who was a PwC alumni. I bumped him at a social occasion and he says, life's so straight. Get to SRCC, be a chartered accountant, be a rank holder, you know, work with the best clients. You shaped your career. There's no crowd out there. There's clearly more demand than the people who exist. I said, simple, life's great. And this is an area that resonates with me. So fast forward, I get to a small city called Shimla. I try and figure out a good school, a good and an affordable school, come from a middle class family. And the school said, sorry, we have only 20 seats and we're already filled with 20. So we don't have a place for you. So that's how my life at Shimla began. So did whatever it took, you know, stood in queues, begged, borrowed, you know, told them I'm a smart kid, told them take my tests, you know, I'll make the school proud, XYZ. Finally, I got the opportunity. I was the 21st kid accommodated in that school. You know, had a great, lovely 2 years, did well in sports, you know, did well in the school. You know, the school did not regret me having there. But ground reality, I came second in the school, not first in the school. First let down. Doesn't matter, but first let down. And being second in a small city like Shimla clearly means you can't get to the best college. So it was very, very clear in my mind I had to get to SRCC. And I didn't get to SRCC. And it was like, you know, that was a place where it felt like, oh my God, you know, you told your entire family, you told all your friends, I'm not going to be an engineer, I'm going to take the route of commerce, I'm a smart kid, and that smart kid is going to get to the best college. And by the way, you didn't get to that best college. So it was a big dampener in my mind. And, you know, fast forward a few bits, people kind of went back and said, Manpreet, CA की दुनिया में college इतना मायने नहीं रखता, rank लेके आएगा ना, सब solve हो जाएगा. I said, no problems, let's go for that bite. And I got to another college, And, very soon, in about a year's time, I said, CA is the goalpost. Let's not waste any time. Let's get to a big firm. I went around all the big firms. Not a single big firm picked me up. Because my rationalization, they don't take people who've not even graduated. They don't hire 19-year-olds. They want to hire 21-year-olds. But I didn't want to drag till 21 because I was itching saying, I've got to be in the big things. So I joined another firm. Fortunately, great experience, loved it, everything. But it still wasn't the big name in the market at that point in time. And then fast forward, the CA exams happened. I cleared the exams. But the ground reality was this firm that I was working for made me travel. Like as a 19-year-old, in about 4 or 5 months of starting in Delhi, they moved me to Bombay. Great experience, great learning. I worked for large companies as a part of that firm. But the ground reality is you didn't have the time to study. You didn't have the coaching classes and blah, blah, blah. So you came back, you had 90 days, you wrote the exams and you cleared it. That was great enough. But you weren't a rank holder. Doesn't matter, I'll be a rank holder in the next tenure. Inter cleared, not a rank. Final, doesn't matter, this is the time you'll hopefully crack it.
Yeah.
And you bugger failed. So 2 groups, I failed one, I cleared one. And this was like, whoosh,
Dream
shattered.
Yeah.
Man, and now you connect the dots back, everything seems like, a relatively smaller city to graduate from. Don't get to the best college, you don't work for the best firm. You're not a rank holder. You're a very average, mediocre sort of kid. And you've got a whole career ahead. Lots of dreams. Everything seems to be coming down. But, like I said, with every failure, you had to stand up and think of another dream. And this time it was, okay, boom, I need to get to a better firm. At that stage, I wanted to get to a big firm. It was like a deep burning passion. Yeah. And that experience, that work experience of 3 years had sort of given me a lot of, it compromised my hours of studying and the coaching, but it gave me tremendous experience. Sure. So as soon as I qualified the next round, 6 months later, I thought I had a great CV and I did get multiple firms to give me an offer. So I had offered from 3 firms out of the 4,
nice.
Which was the first time I went back and said, boom, you haven't lost it all, you're still in the game. And, as you got to the big 4 and you started working for, PwC, you kind of got that feeling of saying, I'm in the right place, I've recovered, I've done all the good things. Yeah. So I'm saying you will fail, but with every failure, you have to have the muscle to be able to think about the next dream and go for it.
So what I take away from this journey of yours is for people who believe that they're not had the best starts, it's just you stopping you from not having the next best step, right? It's just your hard work and the way you're trying to say, look at it, you're able to visualize it, or you're able to work for it or not, that essentially separates you. And it's not more to do with, let's not put the blame on the first step that's not not gone right. Yeah. And
when you start doing that, it brings a lot of inward energy. Because you can go back and blame, like I just said, oh, I didn't have enough time to coach. Am I blaming the firm that I didn't have enough time to coach? So the more you're able to think of dreams and be engrossed in your dream, your goal, it's inward energy that focuses on things you can control rather than sort of crib and try about things that you can't control. And that makes a very big difference. That's a great attitude that you can pick up. Everything that goes well is maybe because of the world that we live in and the environment and the opportunities. But things that don't go well is because of me. And that gives you the reason to improve and get better. And that's a great mindset to have.
I think this is a big moment in this podcast for people also who are listening to internalize the fact that you're accountable for your career, your growth, and shit doesn't happen. You either make it happen or you crib about the cheese that's moved.
I'll give you a very tiny example. When I was growing up, one of my tennis buddies was, his parents were doctors, very good family friends. He had like a pathetic score in 12th. Pathetic, like he didn't get a morning college. He had to get to an evening college. And I used to really empathize and pity the boy saying, oh my God, माँ बाप क्या सोचते होंगे, वो क्या करेगा, इसमें दिमाग क्यों नहीं लगा रहा, and fast forward a few years, and he'd picked up a BPO job at that time. I was sort of moving towards consulting. Fast forward few years, I flipped the newspaper and he was in the newspaper with his picture saying the Young Million Rupee Club. There was a whole newspaper article around how the BPO industry was doing well and he was growing. So he was some assistant vice president or vice president at that point in time already, when I was maybe an assistant manager or a manager. So I'm saying you can shape your career. So he failed, but he had the courage to get back and be expert in what he was doing and excel. So it was a very humbling moment for me actually.
And I also heard you once mention that one of the highest performing or the best associates or employees you have is someone who's not had that great background.
Yeah, I mean, and actually I have a name and a picture in my mind of somebody in my team who was, again, normally we'd hire nothing but the best, and you need to have all the colleges and da 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 da. But here was this one person who had a little bit of a work ex, and we hired him because of the work ex, who didn't have like the best academics, but his attitude, his mindset, his hunger, his ability to learn, his perseverance was just mind-blowing good. And he's a very successful partner today in the firm, a young partner in the firm. So again, people would have written off his career early enough, but he had the courage to go back and say, boss, main karunga. I'm sure I can do it. I'll give it a try, because he doesn't fear failures. That's how he's grown.
Yeah, that's a good thing with not seeing success early, that you've less to lose.
Very clearly between skills and attitude, it's the attitude that's a winner. That's a marathon winner. Very clearly. You can teach skills, it's very difficult to teach attitude.
Talking about the guy being a young partner, you've been, I think, you were a fast tech partner, I heard you say, being a partner at...
I was crazy about that dream of being a young partner. So I was 32 when I made a partner. 10 years.
That's a crazy journey, right? I don't know how many people you would know who've become a partner that soon.
No, there are many. Now. I mean, the world's moving really, really fast. I'm sure in our times it used to be a little slower, but the world's moving really fast. There are very, very bright, smart people all around. And the average age is actually coming down.
That's wonderful to know. But what do you think in that point in time separated you? We talked about a few qualities that you've already given apart. What do you think separated Manpreet from the rest? That Manpreet here is today the person who he is, being the fast track partner, being the person who's
So I'd have
grown.
3 words. They can't do justice to everything about my 10 years, but I think I was deeply curious, very hungry to learn, to prove, to make a point. And again, within that bucket of curiosity was very keen to learn and absorb. So each time I'd go and meet a client, I'd love to learn about saying, आपके 20 साल में आपने क्या किया? आपकी company कैसे चलती है? आपका competition कैसा चलता है? So you were absorbing all the time like a blotting paper. So curiosity is one word. The second word is ambition, which is the dreaming bit that I keep talking about. Yeah. So if you're curious, if you are ambitious, and if you're responsible, that kind of is a perfect track to kind of move your career. Because sometimes when you're curious and ambitious, and when you get success, you can miss out the responsibility. I mean, there's responsibility towards clients, there's responsibility towards the firm, there's responsibility towards the team, there's responsibility towards the family as well, and society as well. So I'm saying, if you can balance those 3 things, you are a stool that has good, stable 3 legs, and you can do reasonably well. Any one of those 3 things going wrong, you'll have good sparks, but may not necessarily be able to run a marathon. So those are 3 things that have stayed with me: curious, ambitious, and responsible.
When we talk about these qualities, what I think about is the fact that, say, talent or intellect or given wisdom doesn't come into the picture, right? You can, so that I think is a moment for me to again internalize the fact that, and for people, that wherever you are, it's not where you are today. It's not the status quo that's holding you back. It's not your knowledge that's holding you back today, because all of that can be built in if you go that.
See, I'm a firm believer of that. Even in the generation that I was growing up, but increasingly, you look at now, what is wisdom? Wisdom used to be knowledge. What is knowledge? Your ability to have enough dough in your mind to be able to connect the dots. Knowledge is available on ChatGPT with a single prompt. That can't be the reason of being successful. There is a lot that a GPT prompt can give you and me. The same message actually. It'll give the same message back to 2 entrepreneurs. But one will succeed and the other may not. So it's a lot more beyond wisdom. I mean, maybe it's the first hurdle to cross, the basic IQ. But it's clearly not a reason as to why you succeed and grow in the career.
Point noted. Let's take you back to Jan 2021. You're leading risk consulting. Then there's this challenge of being a chief digital officer that comes up. And during my debating days, we used to talk a lot about binaries, right? We talk about good, evil. We talk about black and white, right? And there's always science and commerce, or there's always a binary between, say, business and technology. But you being someone who's broken that perception, right? Being the chief digital officer who in some sense mixes the business with tech. What do you have to say essentially on that distinction between science and commerce or business and tech today?
It's actually all converging. I mean, you remember we used to call STEM.
Yeah.
Today they call it STEAM. There is the word art within STEM.
Yeah.
So it's all converging. I mean, even at work, when I talk about AI, we are beginning to go back and talk about humanizing AI. Now, how do you humanize AI? You don't need a scientist to humanize AI.
Right.
You need a human heart to humanize AI. And that's the dichotomy we are all living with. You will have to have multidisciplinary capabilities come together for a business to run, for an individual to succeed. There's this very nice paper that our chief strategy officer had written, who spoke about these two opposite ends of personalities coming together, where he went back and said, some of the best technologists don't seem to understand humans and customers and employees, and some of the best HR folks or people folks don't seem to understand technology. They're so engrossed in that topic. But to run a successful business, you have to be a humanist who's great at technology. When we're growing up, very soon we start saying, oh, by the way, I have an eye for detail. Oh, by the way, I've got a very strategic perspective to things. I'm a macro big thinker. Yeah. There's no right or wrong. You need to be successful. You just can't be a great strategist. You need to execute. Everybody has the same strategy today. Yeah. I want to create customer delight. I want to do da. You need to be a strategic executor. Now, these are very different muscles.
Absolutely.
But you have to build both those muscles together. Companies go back and say, oh, I need to be a global company. But then we go back and say, oh, no, people are very connected with the local connect. Right? So companies are going back and saying, how do I stay global and yet be local? So how do I kind of converge these skills? Now, in a binary world, you will get trained on one. Yeah. In a multidisciplinary world, you will realize that there is a need for multiple skills to come together. Even if you don't have it, you will pull a team together which will bring those capabilities. So it's the paradox of leadership that in a very complex world today that we live in, right, where a successful guy will be able to bring, or guy, girl, whatever, I mean, will bring in these paradoxes together to be able to run a good business.
So this essentially also means for, say, people who are looking at this, the whole message being that be that person who is the amalgamation of the two and not sitting at one part of the horizon.
Absolutely. I mean, or at least have an eye or an acknowledgement that you lack something. I just can't go back and solve for world hunger only with technology. Yes, it can play a big role. But I have to have the human heart. And if I don't, let's have the humility to get the right person to be able to pair us together.
When we talk about that decision of you becoming the chief digital officer, you navigating at that moment, so when I picture, I say I'm Manpreet in 2021, right? I'm doing very well, right? I'm the India risk consulting leader for a firm. Then this opportunity comes my way of becoming the chief digital officer. Now looking at the environment, maybe another guy would think, yeah, it's COVID, I don't know, there's already इतना uncertainty है. अभी मैं एक नई चीज़ और ले लेता हूँ, तो पता नहीं वो लेनी चाहिए इस point in time पे, या ये सही point या ये सही time है या नहीं है. So for people also say navigating careers, how do you evaluate that, or how do you evaluate navigating through a step like that where you're actually changing your disciplines in a way?
I'd say just grab it with both hands. Don't think twice. Simply because, I mean, in my early years, 2008, I was sent for a program called Genesis Park, which was an interesting leadership program where we were about 23 people from 16 countries put together in a place, saying live together, work together for 6 months. And we were not working for clients. We were working for the first time in a consulting world on issues that matter to the firm. And it was very, very powerful to be amidst those 16 cultures to say, and I'm saying, it's a broad brush to say those 16 people represent all the cultures, but how is an American thinking versus how is a Chinese thinking versus how is a Brazilian thinking versus how is this guy from Guatemala thinking? It was very, very interesting. And they all worked for PwC, which meant they all deal with similar environments, but the thought process, the way they work, the way they collaborate was somewhat different. And in that world, you kind of realized, and you met a fair amount of leaders as well as a part of the leadership program. You realize every large leader, every big leader, and you look at their CVs, they've done very different things every 5 years in their lives.
Yeah.
And that was one feeling that I had kind of grown up with, that I do want to try different things every 5 years. I don't want to be insecure about getting something and holding on to it for a very long time. Because you clearly as a good leader need to have great people below you, and some of those great people are possibly better than you, and you got to create succession and get them to be playing the roles that you're playing, and hopefully move on to something else. So when this opportunity knocked my door, I didn't go back and do a spreadsheet and saying, will this lead to a better IRR later in life, and will this make a great career growth? I mean, it was a great opportunity. It was a great learning experience. And again, as I said, if you have the conviction of it's okay to fail, there's no problem. In fact, I actually went out and asked my boss as well and some of the other people, and they said, it doesn't matter the skill you bring. What matters is, can you get things done or not? And you've proved for the 20 years in the firm, you've proved the fact that you can get things done, and that's more important.
How do you get things done? Is there like a go-to, say 2-3 things that we can say to it?
So I think I again go back to the bit of there's a huge life beyond IQ. It's the EQ that makes a very, very big difference. Usually, in about 10s and 15s and 20 years of your career, you're not usually doing things by yourself, right? You're influencing people, you're influencing teams, you're getting the whole organization to move towards a certain track. And while doing that, if you're constantly thinking about what is good for me and what is good for my company, and you're not articulating as to why is it good for you, Sanuki. If you're not answering Sanuki, you can't be a Pete Piper where everybody begins to start following you. So you got to get that emotional connect, and you got to personalize that corporate vision down to what does it mean to you individually. Like in the world of marketing, we say, right, it's the great jingle, but it has to be hyper personalized down to every single person.
Right.
It should feel like the brand's talking to you. You got to do this for 30,000 people in the company as well. Every single person has to wake up and say, this company means X for me because that's the dream I'm chasing. So if you're able to do that, you have a whole velocity of the organization moving towards you. So, and as you grow up in the firm, you begin to start, like I said, attitude's more important than skill. I think over a period, you begin to start realizing it's the people quotient that actually makes you successful, nothing else. It's not even, I rate that as the most important aspect today when you're running a company, running a large business, because you got to drive people and their behaviors. And that doesn't happen because you're the highest IQ guy in the room. Doesn't help.
How do you do that though?
I think it's a set of, it's a softie. It's a set of behaviors, right? Like I remember having grown up in the firm where we went into sessions where they said, can you step into the shoes of a person that you're dealing with to for a minute say, what I'm going to tell you, how would it feel if I was you? Normally in business, you don't have the time to think that. But if you can spend that extra 5 minutes to think, the same messaging will land very, very differently, will create much better impact, you will get better business outcomes. Right? So those are some of the behaviors that you'll have to bring to the table. When you work for clients, for example, I may be doing a job or a scope of work, but if I start bringing the emotional quotient of saying, why is this job being done? What's the purpose behind the job? What can I do to make that person successful? Do you get to a job to say, hopefully at the end of my job, that guy should get promoted? That's not my scope of work, but that's a human connect. That's an emotional connect. I will do everything possible to make this guy succeed, and sometimes go beyond the scope as well. But when you bring that, you build relationships, you build connects, it creates a differentiation around who you are beyond just your skills, because skills are a given. If there are 100 people coming out of a great batch of Stanford or whatever, 300,000, they all have the skills. What will stand out is that layer of attitude, that layer of personal connect that stays in people's minds. And that builds your brand. And the other interesting thing I'll relate to this also is, we all think, I'll do all that when I become a leader. I can tell you, it's such a humbling experience that when you're growing up in the firm, when you're not bothered about kaun leader, kya leader, main to apna, I'm slogging my 8 to 10 hours, whatever, to get my client work done. People are watching you. Your peer group is watching you. They're also busy, you're also busy. Fast forward 10 years, that same peer group who seemed irrelevant at that point in time, I didn't care a damn. We were friends or we were not friends. I didn't care about saying, he's a client, he's a customer. They're all C-suite. That same peer group lands up becoming a CFO, lands up becoming a CEO, lands up becoming a CDO, lands up becoming a CIO. Now they're buyers. Or they've grown up, into some other leadership roles. And they carry that same impression about you. They go back and say, oh, you had a great work ethic. Yeah. Oh, by the way, you were phenomenal with customers. Yeah. Oh, I've got this great problem. I think I'm going to bet on you. So your brand is getting shaped in the years where you don't think those years matter. You think you're only slogging your butt out and getting a job done. But if you're a dreamer and if you're thinking about life 10 years forward, you will start building your brand then. So some of these habits have to be inculcated day one.
Yeah.
Not
waiting to be a leader.
10 years later when you're a partner in the firm or you're leading a business.
I was a part of the conference where there was a starking learning that I took away, which really resonated as you said this, that when we look at networking, right, even say being a part of a startup, being a part of a firm, we tend to think about networking as being known to people in power, right? But a lady there mentioned in the conference that a true network is people who always will have your back or say things highly of you even when they don't need to. And not only the network you're building upwards, right? But it also matters a lot on how people you work with think about you, or who that extended environment thinks about you, because that...
It's a very mature, progressive view. And it's the same mature, progressive view that gets you into a habit of connecting the dots and striking a win-win for the ecosystem, for them, for yourself. That just becomes your next muscle. Then you are not networking because networking will get me business.
Yes.
It just feels good. Yeah. It's the human touch that gets you to succeed. It's like, the world of business is a contact sport. And the ability to touch and play together is very, very important. Yeah. And you should build that muscle. And again, I completely agree. I remember growing up years, there was this book I used to read. I wasn't a natural networker, as one were to say. I mean, I wasn't the guy who would be in the middle of the room and get 20 people surrounding you. They went back and said, sometimes you hesitate seeking help. Because you go back and say, oh, the guy is too senior. If I seek help, he's going to write me off.
Right.
I want to have an upper hand. Right. That book went, I think it was Never Eat Alone, or I'm missing the name of the title. It went back and said, please go seek help. Because when you seek help, you actually break the ice. Let the other person feel the upper hand in the relationship. And it was a very liberating feeling, because the guy can help you, but you should not hesitate from seeking help.
I would resonate with that too, asking you or having you here. Even there's a sense of hesitation that there is, but yes, I'm glad I took that. Glad there were messages sent and you came on board. Now, as we talk a lot about the learnings of you being a leader coming across, we're knocking on that door. I would like you to follow up on that a little, on what are some leadership qualities that you, one, like to have in a, say, leader who's working within your team, or as people who growing up or aspiring to become leaders, what are that qualities as a leader that set them apart?
So, it's a loaded question, and some of what I said could kind of fall in here as well. But, if I were to go back and say, today, if as a leader, you can go hire people who are smarter than you. You can go hire people who had the courage to fail. You can go hire people who don't think twice before saying, boss, you were wrong. It doesn't resonate. I mean, if the guy doesn't have the courage and says, boss, aap itne achhe ho, aur aap badhiya kaam karte ho, you're not adding value to the team.
Right.
But it doesn't happen just because you've interviewed a smart guy. You have to build a culture where speaking up is okay. Yep. You have to build a culture where you go back and say, we've got to learn the art of respectfully disagreeing when it means you and I don't disagree. You and I don't agree. You've got to have, like what I say, the owner's mindset. There's a difference between being an employee of a company and being an owner of a company. Yeah. When you come to me for a decision, boss, yahan pe paisa laga dein, I'd ask a question saying, forget about you're a manager in this firm. If you were the owner of this company, the single man who ran this company, would you do this? The answer is very simple. If you were the owner of the company and you had an employee like you doing this role, would you be happy with what you're getting or what you're delivering? Or would you do something different?
Right.
The answers are very, very different. We've got to get that owner's mindset instilled in our people by creating a culture where we hire smart people and let them thrive with their smartness by being able to express and speak their minds, and giving them the freedom to fail by giving them the, protecting them, from the shocks that failures can bring to the table. Yeah. If you can do that, You're bound to be a high-performing team. Your teams will do well. There'll be enough emotional quotient. They will grow. You will grow. The company will grow. That's just the piece that's very, very important.
So for the person who wants to be that guy, I think the learning that can be taken away is being in the shoes of the CEO or the CXO, and does that decision do well if you were in his shoes, if you were to do that, or maybe thinking like that, thinking of yourself as the CXO and taking then all reevaluating it and taking all factors in place.
I'm saying don't even think of a CXO. Just call yourself as the promoter of the company. Even CEO is a hired guy.
Yeah.
I am the malik of the company. मेरे पिताजी की company है और मैं चला रहा हूँ. तो क्या करोगे? Trust me, the decisions will get very will get even more optimal, and your connect with the brand, your connect with your job, the purpose behind the job will be a lot better. I mean, people need to find a purpose. You don't come to work because you get a salary at the end of the month.
Yeah.
That can't be the purpose. If that's the purpose, trust me, that relationship's not going to last very long. So you have to find, and companies do a lot to be able to instill that purpose and feel back in the employees. Employees have to do enough to be able to connect to that purpose and find that hyper-tailored connect, saying this purpose is what we want to work towards.
That's a big, heavy point there. Maybe people take a second, breathe in to take in that, and you meet. There's a PwC CEO's report.
Like every brand stands for something, right? I'm going to ask a question back to your audience. If you're growing up in your career and building your brand, what do you stand for? I'm not saying your degree, I'm not saying your college, I'm not saying your passion. What is it that you stand for? What is your purpose? Keep thinking about it. And when you start thinking about it, you will start connecting the dots back with the companies and the cultures and the environments that you work for. And if you can't connect the dots, you'll find the next job that will allow you to connect that dot. That is a long-standing relationship. It's very purpose-led. That's very, very important. Articulate that. And it's okay if that articulation changes 6 months later because you're maturing. But it's very important to kind of ask you that question.
And then probably that establishes a deeper sense of work towards it because you're not working for something small.
Yeah.
Then the intensity increases all the more, and then you're automatically motivated to maybe work even a step further to that. Right?
Yeah.
And as we talked about, being a CEO and envisioning yourself as the promoter ki mere papa ki company hai, and that sort. You say quite often that there's certain problems that CEOs of the world today are worried about, right? Or they're focusing there. Mixing that question with opportunities that you think there exist for startups to build in today. What are a few ideas that you think people, say in India, should focus upon? Or are opportunities?
Pick up any sector. Like I was saying, there are enough and more problems to be solved. Pick up anything. Let's pick up the world of media, world of sports. India is a large sports market. And we all know sports are heavy auction rights in the market. Not every company can create a business around sports because you don't even have rights for it.
Yeah.
What can you do? I bumped into a young entrepreneur who went back and said, as the match finishes, my ability to take that entire broadcast and convert that into 60-second shots as the match is finishing for all critical highlights and post it onto media is a technology that I've built. Wow. It's brilliant. Virat Kohli ka catch kya tha? I mean, I just want to see that 60 seconds. It takes at least 8 hours for that, right highlights to kind of emerge onto YouTube right now.
Yeah.
It's a technology that you built. It's around sports. You don't own the content, but you're building that. So there are many things that you can do to be able to create revenue opportunities. I mean, if I were to go back, some of the best and the biggest media companies in the country today have 50 million paid subscribers in a country of 1.6 billion people. You think we can't disrupt that? I mean, a company like Netflix in India will be like 6 million paid subscribers. Yeah. 6 million. They're the largest and the best. Massive opportunities. How do you innovate? How do you hyper-localize your content? How do you get to hyper-local sports? How do you be a global company with a local relevance? Are pieces that you'll have to kind of build. So many ideas out there that you've got to get. I mean, I remember the last SRCC conversation that I was doing. I spoke about the whole tire industry.
Yes.
How do you kind of get to a world where tire as a service gets offered? Because that whole channel will eventually get disintermediated. Tesla today sells a car directly. And that's where every company wants to get to, saying, how can I own the customer? If that's going to happen, it's a whole new muscle that companies will have to build, because today they don't own more than 7 to 8% customers. Everything else is happening through channel.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of new innovation will happen. That innovation will require technology. That technology will require data, processes. There's a whole business to be made around each one of these.
I think we're heading into a wrap. That was some great pointers that you've given. But as we wrap, as a final note, I just want you to define success for people who are looking at this. How should they look at success, and emerging in that with, say, your purpose that you head out every day?
So, I'd go back and say, just break the pressure of a forced definition of success on your mind that says, I need to be a CEO of a company, I need to be a well-paid, higher, अच्छी salary, अच्छी नौकरी, अच्छा घर. I mean, break that barrier a little bit. If you are reasonably well qualified, if you are, if you've got the luxury of sort of studying in a Delhi University college, you have a decent foundation available. And from there on, obviously you should pick up what you like to do, but please don't box yourself into saying, like I bumped into a kid the other day. I'm sorry, I'm going to take an extra minute. He says, oh, by the way, I always wanted to get to consulting. I've got into consulting, but I've gotten into tech consulting, but I'm a commerce guy. I feel like a misfit there. Is that an opportunity, or is that a career dampening thing? I said, man, it's the biggest opportunity for you. You know what you know, but for some god reason, they've hired you into a tech setup, and the future is all tech. How can you not converge? Pick up a few certifications if you need to. But it's the mindset. The guy is actually oh my God, I don't know whether I'm going to survive. They hired you right now. They hired you for a reason. They're a smart company. So I just think, so definition of success needs to be, how do I enjoy every day? I mean, it's like that Steve Jobs statement that says, if there was no next day tomorrow, would I do what I'm doing? I mean, loaded, but can I get to that zone where I really enjoy every day at work? And you cannot enjoy every day at work because your boss has asked you to do 10 things in 7 hours. You will enjoy it because you find the purpose or connect behind what you do. I like to meet people. I like to make people successful. I like to add trust in the society. I feel like I have a responsibility back to the broader stock markets. That's when I joined the firm as a kid. I mean, what can I do to the stock market? But it felt, when I audit a company, I'm adding that trust to the investors who are investing in that company. That purpose was very helpful. Now, when you're thinking on that purpose, you clearly broaden your scope in the mind. So those are the two bits that I'd go back and say, that you have to get to a zone where you're enjoying every day at work. To enjoy every day at work, you will need to have a connect back with the purpose, and have the courage to chase that purpose, even if it means you fail a few times. Those are just a few bits that I'd kind of go back and wrap up this conversation with.
Wonderful. I think I'll thank you so much for your time, Mr. Manpreet. And people, you've been here till today. Now it's on you to take away the learnings, to make some notes, and to be accountable if you're looking to make change, and not this conversation be just another conversation that you watched and went about doing the same things that you do every day. So yes, with that, we'll leave you, and we'll see you soon with another conversation soon. Thank you.
Cheers.